Welcome to Studio 58A Live here at the Jamaica Information Service, our discussion program coming to you live on Facebook. I'm your host, Vaughn Davis. Thank you to everyone who tuned into our program, wherever you are online. Thank you so much for joining us. We really, really appreciate your eyes. And like how we have your attention, do us a favor, no man. Share this video with a friend or two or 5,000 so we can have a very lively discussion. And as you watch, remember to send in your questions and your comments so we can put them to our guest. Now, innovation is what drives industry. This is fact. Businesses, organizations have to keep finding newer, more efficient ways of doing things if they want to stay relevant to customers as time passes. Blockbuster, Polaroid, BlackBerry, Kodak, remember them? No? Well, that's your homework for later. Suffice it to say that these were very dominant companies in the past that failed because they failed to evolve to meet the new needs and interests of customers. Now they are a cautionary tale. Locally, one of the many organizations looking to keep itself in a forward-thinking space is one that probably doesn't come readily to mind to most people. We're talking about the Bank of Jamaica. Now, one of its major roles is to be the central authority for the country's currency. You know, the money we all spend. Yeah, the BOJ issues it and works to help keep it valuable and tradable, both locally and internationally. Now, the bank is innovating by adding a digital component to this responsibility through the creation of a digital currency called CBDC. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm intrigued. Now, what does this mean for the Jamaican dollar? How will it be spent? How do I get access to it? Whole heap of questions just off the top of my head. Well, here today to answer them is Director of Payment System and Payment System Policy and Development in the department, Mr. Mario Griffiths. Welcome, sir. That was a mouthful, your title. I'm sure you get used to that, right? Mr. Griffith, you turned off your camera. I think you're trying to unmute yourself. Technology, ladies and gentlemen, it happens to the best of us. Sometimes it doesn't cooperate as it often should. All right, so as soon as we get Mr. Griffiths back, like we said, we're here talking about the Bank of Jamaica and their plans to roll out a new digital currency called CBI. Here we go. Here you are, Mr. Griffiths. You're back with us. Can you hear me?
I'm with you. Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
All right, wonderful. Welcome in. Like I said, welcome into the show. Thank you so much for being here to talk about interesting topic, digital currency. You know, I think this is the way the world is going. As you mentioned before, if organizations don't evolve to meet the needs of their customers, to meet the needs of the new marketplace, they die slow, painful deaths. So it looks like BOJ is taking a page out of those books and trying to evolve and be innovative where this is concerned. So talk to me about how this whole digital currency thrust came up and became something on your agenda.
Great. Thank you for that. Thank you for having me, and thank you to your listeners and viewers. I mean, digital currency has been in the pipeline for a very long time, and the central bank, being the center of any financial system in any economy, has been looking at it. I believe we have been looking at it from about 2014, and strengthened our in-depth research and position on digital currency in approximately 2017, and now we decided to launch a central bank digital currency with the objective of enhancing financial inclusion, reducing our costs for issuing banknotes and coins, as well as improving our financial or payment systems, I should say, national payment systems, particularly retail payment systems.
All right, so it sounds like this is just something you just mentioned in terms of reducing the cost of making currency. That's something that jumps out to me right away. Most persons don't appreciate that it actually costs money to make money and print money and all of that, right? So I'm sure, talk to me about that in that element of things and how that kind of helps spur things forward with this digital currency.
Yeah, well, I mean, it costs, as you said, to print cash. We have to order. There's a lead time for ordering. We have to wait for the cash to get here. We have to issue cash to deposit taking institutions, as we do know, and they also have to distribute, and there's a cost along that chain for cash and getting cash to the hands of the Jamaican and the public. So, I mean, our idea here is to reduce the cash along that value chain. And one way of doing so is by issuing a central bank digital currency, which we anticipate will be at no cost.
All right, so tell me now. I mean, with digital currency, what does this mean for me as the person, or regular Jamaican person with the money? I'm accustomed to having my dollars and my cents in my pocket. I mean, digital currency, that's all well and good, but I mean, that to me that sounds like internet. That sounds like some. Suppose me not have internet. I mean, what am I missing? What do I need to know to understand where this is going?
Right. Well, again, it's about access and usage, right? It's a convenience. If you're walking with large sums of cash, that's a security risk. There's a concern there, and we're digitizing that process. You can walk with large sums of cash now, on your person, but it's all in your new mobile wallet, right? So nobody will know that you're walking around with large sums of cash. I mean, if you had large sums of cash on you, then somebody would be able to see a bulge somewhere along the line. So we're trying to digitize all of that process. But not only that, we're trying to meet you where you are, right? Financial inclusion is one of the key objectives for issuing digital currency. And we want to be able to issue CBDC right where you are. So if you're a farmer in your farm and you're doing business, you really don't have any time to walk into a commercial bank, stand up in a line, or walk to an ATM machine and withdraw cash. So we want, persons to have a central bank digital currency transaction account where we can deliver CBDC to you, whether online or offline, right? We're working on ensuring that it operates similar to cash. It's a complement to cash. And we're, expecting that all facets of cash and all aspects of cash remains.
So you mentioned a transaction account. No,
Correct,
so that
correct.
means like I, for example, would have to get online and then log in and create that account for myself. And then having created that account, how do we trade and get the digital currency? If you understand what I mean, like how do I open I create my transactional account? I'm starting with a balance of 0. How do I get this CBDC? You know what I mean? How does that work?
All right, so I'll tell you a little bit about how it works, but you've just mentioned the word trade, and you have to think of central bank digital currency as money, right? We when you move into a different market, which is FX, you're trading currencies, right? But with a central bank digital currency, it's money. It's not like it's not cryptocurrency at all, which is traded, on the various cryptocurrency exchanges. This is actual money in your pocket. It's money in your wallet. It's money in your purse. So there's no trading there. Now, in terms of accessing CBDC, first, let me just walk through how it works. The central bank will mint the central bank digital currency, and that's an offline process, and we have all the securities around that process. From there, we move it to an online system, and that's placing the central bank digital currency that's now minted in a digital vault here held at the Bank of Jamaica. Then from there, your deposit taking institution or payment service provider will request or purchase this digital currency. We will move it from the central bank into the DTIs and the payment service providers digital vault, and from there, consumers, myself and you, we will request to have this central bank digital currency placed in a transaction account. So it's separate from a deposit, because deposits are held at commercial banks. Now this is cash, right? And if we're making cash digital or electronic, you'll certainly need some electronic transaction to ensure that you hold the central bank digital currency. So that is what we're doing, right? So we're having that physical money, banknotes and coins, transformed in a digital world. And in order to do that, you must have a transaction account. The benefit of having the transaction account, however, is, simplified know your customer requirements. Not all the requirements for opening a bank account. But the good thing is once you already have a bank account and you request to have a central bank digital currency transaction account, I mean, it's an easy phase over into that account. And what we expect is similar to how you access your online banking platform, whether it's a mobile banking app or, utilizing your laptop or smart device. you'd log on and you'll say, I want to transfer X amount to my CBDC transaction account,
Mm.
right? And you will do so. What it is that your service provider will provide you with is a mechanism to utilize the central bank digital currency. So if you have a mobile device, and then we believe that one of the best ideas or the best way to move into, CBDC transaction account is meeting people where they are. Everybody has a mobile phone. So we want to ensure that, a mobile wallet is provided by your service provider to store, central bank digital currency. And thereon, there are other mechanisms to process the central bank digital currency, moving from myself to you.
So I mean, yeah, it
Yeah.
seems like there's a whole series or sequence or behind backdoor technologies that bolster and back it up to ensure that it functions properly and functions just like cash. If I want to, if
Just like
I
cash. That's
understand it.
correct.
All right. So I'd like let me just show some of the persons online who have already joined us and asking some questions. Candice Kristen, thank you so much for joining us. Trisha Foley says good afternoon, watching from Bermuda. Thank you so much, Trisha. I really appreciate that. Thank you for your eyes. Stephen Gale saying good afternoon from Detroit, Michigan. Thank you, Stephen. Appreciate your eyes. All right. So Candice is asking, what's the timeline for the rollout of the digital currency? So what kind of timelines are we working with, Mr. Griffiths?
We have a very tight timeline. We're expecting that right now we're moving into testing in the sandbox, and we're also planning on moving into a managed pilot by August of this year. Thereafter, if we're successful, and we're ensuring that we're successful as best as we can, we're expecting rollout by next first quarter 2022.
All right, so there you have it, Candice. By 2022, first quarter 2022, should be able to get your transaction account and start doing some digital transactions using the CBD. All right. Now, well, the question that comes to mind immediately to me, as I'm so sure you must have thought of, is security and making sure that this thing is secure and can, because I mean, you know, the world we live in, hackers, online persons who sit down and study these things and know how to get behind and take advantage of these new digital frameworks and so on. So talk to me about how we're making sure that it is secure.
That's a very good question, and that's one of the biggest questions. That's one of, the other is around data privacy.
Mm-hmm.
But, as I would have mentioned, there are certain offline facets of the system that provides a certain amount of security. There are user-based roles and this is within the Bank of Jamaica, or deposit-taking institution, payment service providers already have their security mechanisms in place. Where we believe the greatest risk is at the endpoint or the end user. So, that's my mobile wallet and yours. And certainly financial education is one mean to ensuring that persons understand what it takes to secure your money. If you had money in your wallet, you know how best to secure that, right? And we want to ensure that, there's the use of digital signatures when you're logging in, the use of, your mobile device, which provides some amount of passcode or, biometric scanning, whether it's face or fingerprint. We want to ensure that there's multi-factor authentication. So that is something something you are, or something you have, like a digital token or a dynamic token. It's your username, your password. And once you log into the system, it's up to your service provider to provide other mechanisms, such as, sending up a code to your email or a one-time password to your, via SMS. So these are, various techniques and mechanisms at the endpoint. And all the other security mechanisms, at upstream is what we are already used to, which is provided by our deposit-taking institutions as well as payment service providers.
All right, so a lot of effort is clearly going in to make sure that it's secure, because like you just said, this is money. And so everybody wants to make sure that, my money is secure. And, you can't blame them for that. I mean, this is just the way the world is. Okay, so we have some questions coming in. Let me just, well, first, let me big up Nadine Savory saying, good afternoon, watching from Florida. Very interesting topic. Thank you, Nadine. Really appreciate that. Princess Chambers is saying, digital currency is for people with money, not for hustlers, the liquor shop, street sellers will never survive off this. So I want you to take that question on. I'll respond to that in a second, but first, it'd be interesting because I'm sure you would have had to have taken into consideration that there may be some persons who feel a little excluded, and you touched on the phrase financial inclusion as we began to talk. So just take that on and just explore that whole mindset that BOJ is taking where this is concerned.
Right. So from the standpoint of financial inclusion, we recognize that most persons, approximately 78% of Jamaicans, already have a bank account, right? The issue is usage, right? We're not meeting persons where they are, right? So she mentioned the word persons, pretty much hustling on a day-to-day. So we want the central bank digital currency and the transaction account to be with you where you are on a day-to-day, right? So we want to ensure that the entire ecosystem is built where once you receive cash for, you're based on your job or occupation, you would have an easy outlet or agency arrangement where I can take that money and load that cash onto my digital wallet, right? And from there, I can start spending using my digital wallet on my mobile phone. So that's the idea. We want it to be as easy as how cash is moved within the economy. As we said, it's a complement to cash, right? And I think that is the best way.
And it's funny thing, I think many times we take persons for granted. We take the man in the street for granted, assuming that he's not capable of accessing or making necessary adjustments to his life or personal life and business to be able to access opportunities like this. And I guarantee you that there are many persons who are more than equipped. And not to mention, I believe, I'm sure you would have probably looked at case studies at other countries and so which are using similar technologies. And I understand that in places like Africa, they have digital currencies and digital economies are far more widespread that come in countries where their currency is, undervalued or significantly devalued. They've managed to increment systems that are usable through cell phones using digital currency to be able to just pay for basic things like the little apple or so you know what I mean, the little juice and things like that. So I'm sure, talk to me about that kind of, I'm sure you would have come across these kind of experiences. I wonder if maybe you could share some of that research and background with persons who may be a little bit, hesitant.
Okay. Well, central bank digital currency is new, right? Not a lot of countries have gone where the Bank of Jamaica will be going. There are a few countries such as the Central Bank of the Bahamas. They have gone they have issued their central bank digital currency. That's the Sand Dollar. The People's Bank of China, right? So China is also heading in the digital currency, but it's at a pilot stage. And our Caribbean neighbors, the Eastern Caribbean, also moving in the direction of issuing a central bank digital currency. I know you would have mentioned Africa and other countries, but those countries are mainly along the lines of electronic money. Okay. Right, which tends to be private money held in a commercial bank and not a central bank liability, which is what a central bank digital currency is, which is also legal tender. Right, we have been, as I said before, from 2014 conducting our research, but went into a lot deeper research by 2017. But we've also been having discussions with our Caribbean neighbors, that's the Central Bank of the Bahamas, as well as the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. So we're learning from them, and they're also learning from us because the models are pretty different. They're doing a true retail central bank digital currency where the central bank is the issuer of the mobile wallet. Right, there's no intermediary. We plan to ensure that there's no disintermediation where we're using the two-tier model. We're issuing to the DTIs, the PSPs, and then for further retail. So the models are different, right? But they're learning from us and we're learning from them. The technology is also different. They're utilizing the blockchain distributed ledger technology, and we're focusing on the traditional or conventional. We want to ensure that there's not a lot of disruption in our financial system. And not only that, the technology that we're providing can integrate easily with all the existing systems, right? And we're talking about the existing real-time gross settlement system, We're talking about the existing mobile wallets in the market and prepaid cards that are also in the market. So we want to ensure that we keep abreast of all that's happening, both locally as well as regionally and internationally.
All right, so I can appreciate that. So it sounds to me like you're not necessarily working in a way that it's going to be. Let me rephrase. It almost seems like you're going to make sure there's a strong partnership with the commercial entities and resellers, the financial institutions, and they will in turn kind of facilitate the interaction with the digital currency rather than you, the bank itself.
That's correct. The DTIs and the PSPs, payment service providers, these are the guys that already have the clientele. They know the customers, right? So they know who you are. So it's for them to, be innovative, provide new technology, new payment instruments that will meet the needs.
All right. So basically, yeah, you guys will work hand in hand with the financial institutions and they will help them to set it up and be able to navigate it and do the transactions and that kind of thing. You just kind of bolster it and back it up and make sure that it has the legal standing and the value and so on. So that when people do choose to use it, there will be no worries or concerns or anything like that.
That's correct.
All right, so let me jump back onto some other questions. Candice Christian, thank you again, Candice. She's asking, will there be a beta format before complete rollout? Meaning maybe like a pilot or something like that to test the waters? Because of course you have to test it first, right?
Well, we have tested it before. We have chosen our technology partner, eCurrency Mint, right? So we've walked through it. What we plan on doing is testing it again, in June and July prior to our managed pilot, which is another test again. So we're testing it approximately about 3 times just to ensure that it meets the Bank of Jamaica requirements, the requirements of our key stakeholders, the deposit-taking institutions and payment service providers before, a full-scale launch to.
All right, so work is ongoing. So, I'm pretty sure, once again, I'm sure that's more of an issue of confidence, making sure that you guys have tested, double tested, triple tested to make sure that when you do roll it out, yeah, everything rolls out seamlessly and smoothly. All right,
agreed. All the vulnerability tests and stress testing, we plan on getting that done.
And I'm just going to read a comment to you that I'm sure you're going to encounter many times. So prepare yourselves when you start rolling out. Fabian Prince saying, I don't trust this movement because if the hackers them stealing from your NCB account, how are you going to stop them from this? You're going to encounter this. This is going to become a recurring decimal when things roll out. So I just, once again, if you could reassure Fabian, I'm sure many persons who are thinking like him, how you're going to make sure that this thing is secure and bolstered and, that you guys have took all the necessary precautions to make sure that it is protected and secure going forward.
Mm-hmm. Right. So I would have mentioned, the risk at the endpoint earlier and some of the mechanisms that we're putting in place to ensure that our security framework is robust, right? But, I won't get into the details of the digital signatures, the one-time passwords and the multi-factor authentication, but that is some of what we plan on implementing. But I think the key point here is really on financial education and the channels within which we push the message to educate end users of the central bank digital currency, the security around their digital wallet, and ensuring that everybody's protected and your money is protected. That's the most important thing.
Absolutely. Right. So yeah, I'm just preparing you because I have to just share the comments as they come in because these are what our audience members think. This is what persons are gonna think and feel and experience. I want to express when these things are coming out. I'm just preparing you. This one is a little bit left, so prepare yourself. All right, Mr. Griffiths saying, Princess Chambers is saying, Revelations 13 verse 17 says, without the mark, you shall not be able to buy or sell mark of the beast system, no poor people will survive. So obviously you can appreciate the traditional religious background that many persons in Jamaica have. And on that basis, they are very, very skeptical and apprehensive about these new digital cashless. And, so like I said, I'm just introducing to you elements that this is what people are thinking. People strongly believe these things and strongly hold fast to these beliefs. So these are things they're going to have to tackle. So I'd like to give you an opportunity now to respond to that kind of concern.
I will respond to the question directly, but what I can say is, most persons in Jamaica utilize cash. And we want central bank digital currency to be, similar to cash. It's a complement to cash. So, once you're utilizing cash, we want to make it easier for the public to utilize cash, right? And we believe the central bank digital currency is the best way to do so. So we want to meet you where you are, whichever device it is, whatever the innovation is that can support or facilitate the central bank digital currency is what we're encouraging within the market right now. And we're having our discussions with the deposit taking institutions and the payment service providers just to ensure that we roll out the right product within the market.
And I will only add in response to Princess Chambers and many persons who may feel as strongly as she does that, there was once a time when, the internet wasn't a thing. You know what I mean? There was once a time when many digital and hands-free and, these online mechanisms that they existed, and when they were introduced, there was similar skepticism, but now they have become so integrated into our lives that it's now the norm. Not necessarily that's a bad thing, but it has allowed us to facilitate so many other kinds of transactions and activities, and we've been able to move on. Just take, for example, this pandemic. The very fact that nowadays we have access to Zoom and other software that allows us to meet virtually and experience things virtually. Persons are able to wink, wink, experience their church services virtually. Even on some of those very same platforms that they would have been skeptical and apprehensive about prior to the pandemic. But now they're using them and are using them for good. They're using them to spread the gospel, etc., etc. So naturally, it's normal to feel a little mistrustful and a little uneasy about new technology, but as time passes, as you get more familiar with it, as you get to understand it and see the benefits of it and see the different ways in which it operates, I'm sure you'll feel a lot more comfortable and things will change. But I mean, that's just the nature of life is that time and innovation, things keep changing, things keep moving. So I appreciate your unease, I appreciate your sentiment, but I'm sure the BOJ is working to make the goal, I'm sure, as Mr. Griffiths will tell you, is to make things easier for members of the public, not necessarily to introduce something that's going to cause you to raise your eyebrows and feel skeptical and worried and things like that. All right. All right. So a little bit of a left field question, Mr. Griffiths, coming from Vanessa Silveira online. She's asking, recently the BOJ announced that it no longer operates under central government, the Ministry of Finance. What are the implications of this? What does it mean for regular Jamaicans? So I guess persons are interested. If they've been paying attention, you would have known that some legislation has been passed allowing the BOJ to become a fully independent institution. So what does that actually mean? What does that translate to for the regular Jamaican?
Right. What it really is, it fits within the scope of what we have always been doing. Independence has been the recent legislative amendment. It's where we have improved on our governance structure. The hallmark of any good institution or within any country is good governance, and I believe the independence has brought that to the fore. We have made a regulatory and legislative amendments to the Bank of Jamaica Act, and we have implemented a number of policy committees, or monetary policy committees, financial policy committee, and we have bolstered the governance arrangement to ensure that we act in the best interest of the public.
All right. So once again, it's like, as we mentioned to open the show, it's about innovation, finding ways to make sure that your operations are the most efficient that it can possibly be, so that you can best meet the needs of the customers or the person that you're working to serve. So this new method of operation gives the BOJ, I suppose, a little bit more autonomy, a little bit more, I want to say, for lack of a better word, power to exercise and implement certain policies on behalf of the country and make sure that, the country's currency is strong, secure, etc., etc., etc. But while I have you, this does open up a good line of questioning, because I'm sure many persons are not necessarily, they might view the BOJ as, we get it is a bank, but is it really a bank? But you know what I mean? What does the BOJ really do? You know what I mean? We understand they talk about, the only time we really hear about them is when people complaining about the exchange rate and why the BOJ don't intervene more or do this more. So for persons who might give them, what does the BOJ do on behalf of members of the public? Just a persons who might really just want to get like a refresher, from you.
Right. I mean, it goes to the core of our business. We're about price stability, financial system stability. We're responsible for overseeing all the deposit-taking institutions. We're responsible for, overseeing the payment service providers, remittance service providers, and cambios and bureau de change. Our job is to ensure that, there's confidence in you placing your funds with these institutions or doing business with these institutions. So we ensure that they're operating to standard, operating to international standards as well as our local standards, just to ensure that we keep the system safe and we can, work and do business easily in Jamaica. The underpinning, we always say, the plumbing of any economy is the financial system, and we're holding this financial system to the highest standards.
All right, so there you have it, people. That's what the BOJ is all about, making sure that the necessary rules, regulations, and stipulations are in place and abided by so that the Jamaican economy can function in the best way possible. I mean, there's a lot, like I always tell people, there are a lot of things that we see and we take for granted. We don't really know how these things operate, how they work. When you go in the bank and you make a transaction, you make certain things happen. There's a whole ecosystem operating in the shadows behind all of that. And just suffice it to say that the Bank of Jamaica is a very important component of that whole framework, so that everything can work how it's supposed to work. And then if things happen, that there are, accountability measures in place to ensure that people can get some kind of redress, and that people looking out on behalf of the customers and even the organization, so that the best things work. So that, because it's a whole heap of work holding up our economy. I take it from me. I don't think I don't think Mr. Griffiths would ever disagree that it take a whole heap of work to make sure that everything works like how it's supposed to work. So trust me, I'm doing a whole heap of work over there, and which is why we can appreciate that introducing this new digital currency is just another step in the direction of making sure that our economy functions the way it's supposed to function. Our functions in the most efficient way possible. I want to know if you could just go back over with me some of the benefits again for persons who may just be tuning in and just be, have had their eyebrows raised about understanding that BOJ is introducing a digital currency. Once again, just review some of the benefits that this move is going to attract or create for members of the public.
Right. So, I would have mentioned the benefit of financial inclusion. It's about having persons who are unbanked, those persons who don't have a bank account or a transaction account with a payment service provider, to ensure that you have access to the financial system. What we're trying to do is ensure that we capture everybody, right, within the financial system, so that we can provide additional services, or your service provider can provide additional services. So we're thinking micro savings, or micro credit, or micro insurance. So there are other value added services that can be added to having a transaction account, right? And that's for the service providers to provide same. Where, as I mentioned before, we are improving the national payment systems, particularly the retail payment systems, and having the DTIs and the payment service providers on board, right? We're facilitating that innovation downstream to the end users. So, the innovation is there and persons can use it at their own convenience. But we're also ensuring that, the system operates as it should. It's efficient, it's safe, and we're able to also facilitate, the government in the delivery of the social and welfare benefits such as PATH and the CARE program. So those are some of the top objectives, and most importantly, also a reduced cost of doing, making payments in Jamaica.
Right. So with digital currency, hey, it's virtual. So you can send, transfer, make transactions, make them, moving money becomes like, something you can do in a speed of light. You just click a button, money moves. When money moves, the economy turns. When the economy turns, things happen. When things happen, things get, you know what I mean? So you have to kind of think of it in terms of efficiency. As a runner would want to run, learn how to run to shave a couple of seconds off their speed, overall speed, so that they can finish the race properly, finish and do better, and that kind of thing. So that's the kind of goal, and that's the kind of mindset, and especially within the framework of the objective of achieving economic growth for the country. The potential of a move like this is very, very significant. When we're able to be more flexible and responsive with money and how we use it, how we treat with it, it opens up a whole new set of doors for different institutions and organizations to operate. And then they can better serve their customers, offer different kind of products to their customers, offer different kind of things. So it's all about innovation and making the overall Jamaican economy more flexible, more lean, and much more responsive to the needs of customers. And start with the BOJ. So you should really be telling them thanks, which is, so thank you, Mr. Griffiths, for the work that you're doing, and the team that everybody would have been put the work in to make sure that this this initiative is executed safely, securely, and that persons can benefit and really appreciate what's going on. All right. So I guess as we move to bring things down, I guess I would like you once again to let persons know how you're going to make it available or accessible to the different financial institutions and members of the public, and how it's going to be secure. Because repetition is the key to learning. So I always like to go over these things and make sure that person, at the very least, they take away those key things.
Mm-hmm. Right. So as I mentioned before, the Bank of Jamaica will be issuing central bank digital currency to deposit-taking institutions and the payment service providers. And that's at the first tier one. That the tier two level is where the deposit-taking institutions and payment service providers will now provide the central bank digital currency to end users, the public, uh, whichever device they have their wallet account or their CBDC transaction account. That is how the Bank of Jamaica expects the central bank digital currency to flow throughout the system all the way to the public.
All right, so there you have it, people. Digital currency is the new wave. I think we just have to. This is one of those things, just like Zoom and these digital meeting platforms. This is one of the things that's coming. It's not going. I think this is the way economy and most things are going. Cash is king. Cash will always remain king, and you're gonna have cash in the public, but having digital currency, I'm sure most of us don't even actually see most of our money these days. It's all numbers and figures, and you sign into your account or you got an ABM and you make a transaction and so on. That's the way the world is working. This is how it's operating. So this is technically nothing new. It's just a much more integrated product to give you much more flexibility and the ability to do a whole new range of things. All right, Mr. Griffiths, I thank you so much for joining us and sharing information about this initiative that the BOJ is undertaking. I'm sure members of the public, I'm sure you're going to have to massage it into person's psyche a little bit more, because as you can imagine, whenever change comes, there's a little bit of a resistance. But once you guys highlight the benefits and the different ways in which they can, improve themselves, improve their lives and so on, it's going to be a bigger and easier sell.
Yes.
I suppose I should ask you all, where does a move like this allow Jamaica's banking and financial system to be relative to other more, quote unquote, more developed economies or jurisdictions and so on like that? How is this moving us in step with those kind of operations?
Well, it's about leapfrogging, right? Once you're implementing an innovative initiative like a central bank digital currency, you're pretty much placing Jamaica on top. Your national payment systems will now be ahead of developed countries, and that augurs well for Jamaica.
All right, fantastic. All right, people. So I guess if persons want to find out more information, can they just hit up the BOJ, follow your social media, that kind of thing to get more information? Where can they get more info to familiarize themselves and so on? I was asking. Right. Can they visit? Should I just the website, which is what, boj.gov.jm?
No, it's boj.org.jm. Right. From time to time, we will have our formal press releases. We will have our articles in the various print media, but we're also on social media, our Twitter account as well as YouTube. So we will be publishing information through those channels.
All right, I was about to go to my wrap up segment, but Peter Williams just logged on. I had a question, so let me ask. Peter Williams, thank you for your question. Peter is saying, with the introduction of CBDC, will transfers between accounts be instantaneous, and will they be instantly processed outside of regular banking hours? Some transfers between accounts and to prepaid cards are currently taking days.
Right. So as we said, it's a complementary cash. We want it to be as cash-like as possible. So central bank digital currency will operate 24/7, 365. That's the idea. Now, in terms of the transfer, it will definitely be immediate. So once you're making payment in cash with physical banknotes and coins, it's immediate. It's in real time. It's instantaneous, and we want central bank digital currency to be the same.
All right, Peter, hopefully that answered your question. And if you have any more, not to worry, you can always drop them in the comments and we make contact with Mr. Griffith so that we can get the right answers. We want more persons to ask questions, to be creative, to be curious rather, to be inquisitive about this initiative. It's not a bad thing to ask these questions. I'm sure the BOJ will appreciate that persons, when they're interested, they're going to ask questions which will allow them to be able to refine the product and make sure that it better serves and meets the needs of members of the public. All right. So if you have any questions, anybody you know, anybody who has any interest, feel free to drop them in the comments. Drop us a line. Let us know what you're thinking so that we can in turn feed that to the BOJ. All right. And Peter is saying, thanks, Mr. Griffiths. So thanks. She's thanking you for your explanation. All right. All right, with that said, I think it's time for us to wrap. Thanks to everyone who tuned into our discussion, especially those of you who sent in your questions and your comments. Really, really appreciate that. And like I just said, if you have a question or a comment and we didn't answer it in our discussion and you'd like to ask, go ahead, drop it in the comments so that we'll be able to go through it and channel it to the right people so we can get you the answers you need. Now, remember, our audience plays a major part in our show. So if there's anyone in particular you'd like us to have in studio, let us know. And we'll try to have that person in studio as soon as possible. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at Jamaica Information Service to see who will be in studio next. And while you're at it, check out BOJ online on all their social media platforms at boj.org.jm. Find out all information about the institution and different ways it is working on your behalf to make the financial system and the, bolster the Jamaica's economic systems and so on. All right, check them out, learn more. Knowledge is power. All right. We do this every week live on Facebook. I've been your host, Vaughn Davis, and this has been Studio 58A Live. Thank you again for joining us as always, and please have a wonderful day. Take care, everyone.